Chapter 14, Fearfully and Wonderfully Made a Mandate for Faith. Listen to me, you islands. Hear this, you distant nations. Before I was born, the Lord called me. From my birth, he has made mention of my name. Isaiah 49:1. The faster we move through digital realities, quantum possibilities, or AI-enhanced dreams, the more of the impossible or heavenly potential we are able to see and experience. Michael L. Matthews. I was driving down the road in a large motorhome during some very violent winds on Interstate 44 between Springfield, Missouri and Tulsa, Oklahoma. The motorhome was rocking back and forth, and I heard a loud banging noise on the outside of the motorhome. With the wind and semi-trucks racing past me, creating more wind, it was impossible to pull over on the shoulder of the road. I decided to slow down and pull off the road at the next exit to see if the loud noise was something that blew off my motorhome. As I slowed down, I could hear this slamming noise like someone was pounding on the side of the motorhome. I immediately pulled off the road at the exit and parked at an old abandoned gas station. I got out and noticed one of the larger lower compartment doors was completely missing. I immediately felt sick to my stomach as I knew that the doors could do a lot of damage if they hit another vehicle back on the highway. The compartment door is about 2 feet high and 3 feet wide and weighs about 40 pounds. I looked up toward the highway when I noticed a van coming toward me. Within seconds, the van was right in front of me. The driver slammed on his brakes and jumped out of his vehicle. The next few seconds seemed to last a lifetime. The man getting out was about 6 feet 7 inches and moving aggressively toward the side of his van. He opened the side door and quickly brought out my motorhome door and walked directly at me as if he was ready to wrap it around my neck. My worst fears reached my brain within seconds as I started contemplating how I was going to handle this angry man, who I naturally assumed was hit by my missing door. The man stepped up to me, using my door like a shield, and shouted into the wind, "Is this your door?" Like George Washington, I knew I could not tell a lie, especially since I was the only motorhome on the road with a missing door. The man set down the door and said in a gentle voice, "I saw your door drop off back on the highway exit, and I thought I would do you a favor and pick it up for you." I was in complete shock, as I had been fearfully imagining that the worst possible scenario was about to happen right there on the side of the road in an abandoned gas station. I sheepishly said, "Yes, that happens to be my door. Thanks for picking it up." He smiled, got back in his van, and drove off. As you might imagine, I was breathing a huge sigh of relief and thanking God that my door experience was not nearly as bad as I had imagined it was going to be. I was amazed at the number of thoughts that raced through my mind in just a few short seconds. I had visual images ranging from being beaten to death on the side of the road to trying to find my tire iron to protect myself from this man coming toward me. I had even wondered for a brief second how my wife Pam would react when she found me lying dead next to the motorhome at an abandoned gas station. I even squeezed in a thought about the life insurance policy, as I recalled a few recent TV shows where people were killed by road rage. Like I said, those few seconds seemed to last a lifetime. This experience reminded me why we as humans default to worst-case scenario thinking in almost every situation. Consider these familiar patterns. Traffic stop. Algorithm. A police car appears in your rearview camera feed and your heart rate spikes as your brain immediately runs through every possible violation, even though they're probably just heading to their own destination. IRS notification. You receive an email from the Internal Revenue Service, and your mind instantly performs a deep scan of your tax history, imagining audits and penalties, only to discover it's a routine tax season reminder. Social media intel. You see a colleague posting photos with someone at lunch, and your brain's pattern recognition immediately suggests an affair, only to learn later it's their visiting sibling. Family communication cue. Your children send a "can we talk later" message, and your anxiety algorithm starts processing every possible request or crisis they might share when they simply need help with a Wi-Fi password. Boss meeting request. Your supervisor schedules an urgent morning meeting, and your brain's threat assessment runs overnight, calculating job security probabilities when they only want to ask about next quarter's budget planning. We could generate countless more scenarios where our mental operating system immediately defaults to negative outcomes and worst-case threat modeling. As humans, we're hardwired to process potential dangers first, a biological legacy code running in the background of our consciousness. The base operating system of our brain, the amygdala. Think of the amygdala as your brain's original security software, a primitive but powerful threat detection system that's been running since human version 1.0. Located in your brain's temporal lobe, about the size and shape of an almond, this neural processor sits just inches from your ears. constantly scanning for threats and ready to trigger your body's emergency protocols. Modern neuroscientists and performance coaches often refer to this as our legacy brain or survival mode processor, like outdated software that still runs critical security functions. Just as your smartphone's battery optimization kicks in when power gets low, your amygdala activates fight or flight responses when it perceives any threat to your survival. During my solar panel incident, my amygdala immediately launched its threat assessment protocol. I could either engage in confrontation mode with someone who was actually trying to help me, or I could attempt to terminate the interaction through deception, claiming the panel wasn't mine when the evidence clearly contradicted that story. The lizard brain versus cloud computing. Leading business strategist and author Seth Godin revolutionized our understanding of this primitive neural network by calling it the lizard brain, referencing how reptiles operate purely on survival instincts. This ancient programming creates the resistance we experience when facing new ideas, uncertainty, or change. The amygdala functions like an overprotective antivirus program that flags everything unknown as potentially malicious. It's the reason why, in meetings, innovative ideas often trigger immediate defensive responses. That's never been tested in our environment. What if the system crashes? Shouldn't we run a pilot program first? Let's form a committee to analyze the risk factors. We don't have bandwidth for new initiatives this quarter. This almond-sized neural processor whispers fear-based notifications directly into our consciousness, like persistent pop-up warnings that something might go wrong. While Seth Godin has done remarkable work helping people debug their lizard brain limitations, I believe God designed this system intentionally. Our built-in survival protocols create the perfect conditions for spiritual growth. They force us to recognize our limitations and reach beyond our own processing power. This divine design is what David understood when he wrote, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well." Psalm 139:14. David recognized that being fearfully made with threat detection systems was actually part of being wonderfully made with the capacity for faith. A biblical framework, the faith protocol. God has given humanity an incredible gift by programming our brains with baseline survival instincts. This isn't a bug in the system. It's a feature that demonstrates our need for divine partnership. Our fear-based processing limitations prove that human operating systems require spiritual upgrades to access higher-level capabilities. Without faith, we remain trapped in survival mode. But faith acts like a quantum leap in processing power. It allows us to operate beyond our natural limitations and access kingdom-level resources. This is why Hebrews 11:6 states, "Without faith, it is impossible to please God." Fear keeps us running legacy survival programs, while faith enables us to execute advanced spiritual applications. The Apostle Paul described this internal conflict in Romans 7:15-19. Recognizing that his natural programming often conflicted with his spiritual objectives. "I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate, for I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out." Paul didn't have access to modern neuroscience, but he clearly understood that human nature resists faith-based decision-making. However, he found the solution in spiritual partnership. "The life I live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God." Galatians 2:20. Faith bridges our human limitations and grants us access to heavenly bandwidth, processing power, and resources. We can't execute kingdom-level applications using only human hardware. We need divine cloud computing. Fear versus faith, competing operating systems. Jesus understood that our survival-focused neural networks would need upgrading through faith protocols. He knew that faith would give us administrator access to override fear-based programming. For everyone born of God overcomes the world. This is the victory that has overcome the world, even our faith. 1 John 5:4. Fear and faith operate like competing applications that can't run simultaneously at full capacity. The more processing power allocated to fear, the less available for faith operations. Conversely, when we run faith-based protocols, fear applications get deprioritized. Jesus warned that in the final update of human history, information overload would cause many people's systems to crash due to fear-based processing demands. Luke 21:26. He predicted that the exponential increase in data, decisions, and global connectivity would overwhelm our amygdala processors, causing widespread anxiety, depression, and system failures. In our current digital age, we're experiencing exactly what Jesus predicted. Our threat detection systems are running 24/7, processing news alerts, social media updates, market volatility, political upheaval, and climate data. The amygdala wasn't designed for this level of continuous threat assessment. It's like running intensive graphics software on a 1990s computer. Scientific research confirms that chronic amygdala activation contributes to anxiety disorders, depression, anger management issues, and numerous stress-related health problems. Our biological security systems are being overwhelmed by the sheer volume of perceived threats. The Faith Upgrade, version 7.0. As we approach what could be called the Kingdom of Heaven 7.0 era, where change accelerates exponentially and our old operating systems struggle to keep up, faith becomes more critical than ever. The solution isn't to eliminate our threat detection capabilities, but to upgrade them with spiritual processing power. God's Word provides the ultimate software update. The just shall live by faith. Habakkuk 2:4, Romans 1:17. This isn't just a suggestion, it's the required operating system for kingdom citizens. When you're part of a team, family, or organization, you can diagnose the collective processing power by measuring the fear-to-faith ratio. If the combined fear algorithms around the table consume more processing power than faith applications, your probability of accessing divine resources drops significantly. However, when faith processes dominate the system, God can execute remarkable applications through your group. The mustard seed algorithm. God designed an elegant solution for overcoming our fear-based limitations. While the amygdala, about the size of an almond, controls our threat responses, Jesus taught that faith, as small as a mustard seed, could move mountains. Matthew 17:20. A mustard seed is approximately 1/100th the size of an almond. Yet this tiny faith application can override massive fear processes. This represents the ultimate efficiency upgrade. Minimal faith input can produce maximum kingdom output. It's like discovering that a simple prayer app on your smartphone can access more computing power than all of Google's data centers combined. Exceeding Pharisee-level security protocols. Many people struggle with Jesus' statement, "Unless your righteousness exceeds that of the Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven." Matthew 5:20. The Pharisees represent the ultimate religious security system: maximum rules, maximum safeguards, maximum threat protection. However, the Pharisees' elaborate security protocols actually prevented them from recognizing divine opportunities. When Jesus appeared with miraculous applications they'd never seen before, their threat detection systems classified him as malware rather than a divine upgrade. Their lizard brain went into overdrive, identifying Jesus as a survival threat to their religious operating system. Instead of running faith protocols to authenticate Jesus' divine credentials, they chose to quarantine and delete the threat. Their security system was so restrictive that it blocked legitimate divine applications. They had maximum religious security, but zero faith processing capability. The Pharisees demonstrate what happens when religious systems become so focused on threat prevention that they can't recognize kingdom opportunities. Their righteousness was based entirely on rule compliance rather than faith authentication. The faith-based righteousness protocol. God's righteousness operates on a completely different algorithm. For in the gospel, the righteousness of God is revealed, a righteousness that is by faith from first to last, just as it is written, "The righteous will live by faith," Romans 1:17. This means even basic faith processing, equivalent to a simple authentication token, can grant you access privileges that exceed the most sophisticated religious security systems. A mustard seed of faith provides higher clearance levels than all the Pharisees' compliance protocols combined. Kingdom 7.0. The ultimate upgrade. As we advance toward Kingdom 7.0 understanding, each iteration brings us closer to appreciating, accessing, and operating within heavenly systems. Faith-based applications will allow lower-level religious survival programs to become obsolete, enabling us to function in the unlimited processing environment of God's kingdom. The only bottleneck preventing this upgrade is our attachment to legacy religious survival systems. We don't have to rely on my analysis alone. Jesus himself predicted the obsolescence of traditional religious infrastructures to make way for a unified, seamless spiritual network. Matthew 24:1-3. Conclusion: perfectly engineered for partnership. We should celebrate the fact that we are both fearfully and wonderfully made. It's completely normal for our threat detection systems to activate when facing uncertain situations. However, it's equally important to engage faith protocols when God calls us to scale up, stand up, speak up, and look up as his kingdom continues its rapid advancement. Remember, human limitations haven't corrupted heaven's reputation. As we all upgrade toward clearer and more direct access to heavenly systems, the more Christ-like compatibility we'll discover across all platforms. With sufficient iterations of kingdom knowledge, we'll eventually achieve the unified network that Christ has always been developing, a single, integrated body operating seamlessly across all spiritual applications. In Heaven 7.0, we're not just users, we're co-developers in God's ultimate project.